Welcome to my next live. So this week I've got a guest. Her name is Nicole J. Her stage name is Enoje, and she is known as Bish Funny. So we are going to have a fantastic conversation about resilience and humor and how to kind of use humor to build your resilience. So welcome, Enoje. What would you prefer me to call you?
enoje is fine.
Enoje is
yeah, okay. Or Nicole is also fine.
I've known her for a long time, so I'm likely going to default to Nicole. So I apologize if I do, but you're a woman of many talents, and accordingly, you've got many names. So I've got lots of questions for you.
I like that.
Let's get started. So how have you used humor to cope and manage unfortunate events in your life?
Well, I would say that I haven't always used it. It's more of a tool that I've learned to use as the years went by. I think when I was young, there was a lot of, you're one of these people that it seems like people are always laughing. People were always seemed to be laughing at me. And my mother would say, oh, they're not laughing at you, they're laughing with you. But I would still be getting my feelings hurt, But the older I got, the more I came to see that, laughter was a part of just being in the circle, a part of being in a friendship, a part of being accepted, So I think the place where humor was most used, in the hardest day of my life was when my mother passed away, and unexpectedly, meaning like the same morning, 2 hours before the funeral, I was charged to give the sermon because the person who was supposed to give the sermon just decided, hey, she couldn't make it that day. So I had to step in.
That's like, even though I know because I was there, I still, every time I think about that, I'm like, how? That's like the ultimate test of resilience. Like, you have to jump right in this day that should be about you getting poured into, and you have to do all this pouring out.
Yeah. And the truth is, though, it really felt to me in that moment like my mother was handling things the way that she always handles things. Like, I think if she had had a choice, or she'd been able to express that choice, she would have wanted me or my sister to be the one to talk about her. She would have said, don't make this strange person who I don't know come and talk about me. She wants somebody who really knows her, who can best express her, to talk about her. So if it didn't look like it was going to go down, she was just going to throw me into that position. So that's essentially what happened. So I was, I had to write something really quickly. Even that in of itself was funny because my sister and I were in the car from the funeral home, going from the funeral home to the church, and just scribbling. I was just scribbling all these notes like, don't talk to me right now. Anybody got a Bible? Can you look up some stuff for me here? Because I know what I'm trying to say. And I had to just get up there and do it. And a lot of people said to me after that experience, like, wow, you were so funny. And in my grief, I couldn't really see the funny, but I could see how much joy it brought them, that they were laughing. As I recounted my memories of my mother, they were laughing instead of crying. And that really made me see the power that humor has to bring us through a sad situation, even if that wasn't necessarily my intention.
Wow. I think there's a lot of funerals I've been to where there's been a humorous story told, and the relief that brings in that moment of heaviness and sadness it's the lifting of that heaviness. I find very powerful and very helpful to manage all what's going on, because it's obviously funerals are not easy. So, but like I said, that is the ultimate test of resilience, to be thrown in 2 hours in advance into doing your mother's eulogy. And I was there, so I know how an amazing job you did. And interesting, because it sounds like you weren't fully present to know that you were coming across as funny, even though most people, when they're telling stories of Caribbean mothers, there's got to be some humor there. But you still were able to relate this information and bring light and to your mom, and you were able to, you personified her and you animated her and you gave her life again in that moment. And that was really beautiful for all of us who were there. So, and I think you've started to answer this already. How have you come to value humor as much as you do? I'm assuming you do. Just
Well,
the default assumption of all
yes.
comedians.
Well, humor is culture. I mean, it really is. And I mean, I'm sure that's true for all cultures, but it's particularly true in the Caribbean culture. I mean, humor is there all the time. You know, I would always say that some of the best people who should have really been in stand-up comedy were like your aunties that you had in the kitchen and the uncles at the rum shop and whoever was sitting around at the domino table. You know, we all can tell stories of listening to, you know, women laughing amongst themselves. You know, as a child, you better not even try to get up in their business to see. You get used to hearing that sound, that laughter that can come to them, even though they've worked hard all day. They've had to deal with a lot of things that Black people or immigrant people typically have to deal with in this world. But even in the face of hard times, even in the face of oppression, we still find that humor. And then one day you grow up and you realize you're an adult and you just, you hear yourself laughing, your own mother's laugh, or you're laughing your auntie laugh when you get around your friends. I think that's always a sign that we see when we know we've really grown up. Like, wow, I'm turning into my mother. I just heard that laugh, or my kids tell me I'm laughing so loud, like I used, like, must you laugh like that? Oh my God. But
Yeah.
we are, so I really humor as a way to express our culture and to just shake it off, shake off whatever we're carrying with us through a hard day.
Yeah, I think you've really hit something there, because laughter in itself, I think, is cultural, and how humor is infused into every day of our lives. Because I know for me, my thing is I try to laugh every day of my life. Find something that makes me smile, that makes me giggle, something so that I know that I've always had that moment in my day, no matter what's happened. And I'm not saying to laugh inappropriately or any of that, but I think part of where I learned that was from sitting around the aunties and the uncles and the grandparents and hearing them talk about stuff that made me want to curl up in a ball and suck my thumb about how hard it was, but they could laugh. And I think part of what it taught me was you're going to be on the other side of something that's unfortunate. And so even if you're not laughing in that moment, learn to laugh at some point, because it's not always like that, right? And so I know for me, it was a big part of my childhood as well. So, as somebody who likes to help people laugh and make people laugh, can you laugh at yourself? Do you think we should be able to laugh at ourselves?
Yeah, I think we do. We always do, like, not necessarily in a self-deprecating way. Like, some people, they do laugh at themselves, but they do it in a way as to, kind of hurt yourself, or to say, like, I'm not all that. I'm not, like, how we throw away compliments sometimes when we're trying to be funny. I don't mean laugh at myself like that, but I can laugh at things because, life is funny, and the things that happen to you in life are funny. I've made a lot in terms of comedy. I've spent a lot of time talking about what it is to be like a nerdy girl, which was, when I was growing up, was really meant to be quite insulting. Like, there were hot girls and they were nerdy girls, but now being a nerdy girl is funny. Like, when I go places and people say to me, wow, you speak really well, there's comedy in that. There's comedy in the assumptions that we wouldn't speak well, or that we wouldn't necessarily be very smart, or just, the things that happen as you're walking through the world. Like, you just say to your friends all the time, like, you won't even believe what happened to me today. Comedy is really just taking the same way you talk to your friends and bringing it to an audience. Like, stand up with a microphone in front of an audience and people would say, man, you wouldn't even believe, girl, could I tell you about what happened today? But in our storytelling, our intention is to entertain our friends and our family. That's our first audience. And we're practicing that every day, every day that you can come home and make a laugh out of what happened to you when you were out there at work, or out there, grocery shopping or whatever. We start, like, mining for funny situations, So yeah, I laugh at myself a lot, but I laugh at myself in the situations that I surprisingly find myself in, like whether you're hailing a cab or an exchange you have with the cashier or something you saw somebody else doing, there's always going to be humor there.
Yeah. So how did you learn to laugh at yourself? Because sometimes the things we're able to laugh at ourselves with are the very things that in a different time in our life we were beating ourselves up over. How were you able to learn to bring light and humor to situations that could have in the past been upsetting?
Oh, that's hard. You ask such hard questions. I thought we were friends.
I love you. We're laughing.
Thank you. True. There you go. No, you know what? It's a hard question to answer. I guess after a while, you just outgrow things. It's time. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's time, and when you get further away from things, like the age that I am now, funny story that I can say about myself is that I feel like I was the last person on earth to ever start wearing a bra. Right? And when you're in the 9th grade and in the 10th grade and the 11th grade, then, it starts to get a little bit ridiculous. You feel like, wow, is it ever going to happen for me or whatever? You couldn't have told me back then when I was, 13, 14 and 15, and it looked like nothing was ever going to start happening for me in terms of, getting physical and becoming a woman and being sexy and all of that stuff. You couldn't have told me back then that this would ever be anything that I would find funny because I was in the middle of it. It really seemed like this is my life. I'm always just going to be a flat-chested science chick, and I mean, that's the worst thing that can happen to you, to be a flat-chested science chick. Sure, a science chick, but at least if I'm going to be a science chick, I want to be a science chick with a really good rack. You know what I mean? So,
but you don't go
I can
together,
look back
Nicole.
and
did you get the memo?
What? A science chick with a really good...
Yes! If you're going to be a nerd, you can't be sexy too. Sexy nerd didn't come for 2 more years.
It's true, but I guess that's always been my fantasy, that some guy would just roll up and be like, yo, I see your Bunsen burners. They're looking really, looking really hot today.
Oh, really? I see your Bunsen burners. Do you want to really go through the periodic table with me?
Hello. Oh yeah, you better throw me down on that periodic table, baby. That
What's
kind of
your
thing.
favorite element? Oh my God, can you only imagine?
Yeah, so I guess the humor is that you've got to get old. So in high school, you can laugh at elementary school things. In adulthood, you can laugh at high school things. Everything, it just takes time before you can laugh at yourself.
It's so funny that of all things, you use the example of your breast, because I work with young people. And again, that is such a value, how you physically look. But we know that time has this relationship with gravity that we don't like. And as time passes, gravity increases and things aren't where they used to be. And so I always laugh with the young girls that I work with about, the things you fuss over now. And I want them to laugh about it so that they can think about it, have moments of thinking about it later in life. And I'm like, you're fussing over things like, is my bra big enough, or how do I look? And I said, you're going to get to that point in your life where you're so busy, you're doing so much, you have so many things that are of importance to you that's not important anymore. So you're going to wake up one day, your breast is going to fall to the floor. You're just going to roll that bad boy up, tuck her in your bra because you ain't got no time to deal with it, and go about your business. I always go to extremes for the...
Yeah, you're trying to scare these poor girls half to death. You're going to get up in your breast.
They recognize that I'm trying to be funny just so that it puts into context, this isn't always going to be the big deal that it is now. Right?
Yeah, as you say that, I was thinking about my daughter, when my daughter got to that age where it's like she is totally her mother's child. She came to me and she said, Mom, when will I start wearing a bra? I think I need a bra. I was like, honey, let me tell you something.
Well, you better start saving for that summer in England.
Stop your noise. Yeah, I said,
sorry, inside joke, people. I was wondering if you were going to bring it up. This is the one problem about doing it with somebody you've known for as long as I've known you. I know too much.
Yeah, don't bring my business in the street, saying, yeah, and a shout out to England. Just to clarify, I probably wouldn't even have ever started wearing a bra if I hadn't gone to England for summer vacation. It's something in that milk. Something in that milk that they deliver, they leave on the front steps back in those days.
And I bet if your mother would have never sent you there.
Guy, I went there. I didn't even pack a bra. This is how much I did not wear a bra. But my mom sent me to this famous store called Marks and Spencer's where you could get the best bras. So my mom sent me to buy a bra for her while I was there because you couldn't get Marks and Spencer's at those prices in Canada then. So I didn't even pack a bra. And when my mom picked me up at the airport when I went back to Canada, I was wearing the bra that
Oh my
she had
God.
advertised.
That is hilarious. I love it. I love it. See, that's
Yeah, very
life is
validating.
humor, though. And this is the thing is, as you know, as someone who started to do comedy, I'm like, people are like, how do you come up with stuff? And I'm like, life is full of situations that will make you laugh if you can see the humor in it, right? So,
yes.
So my next question is, what, if anything, has laughter taught you?
Yeah, laughter has taught me that I won't always exist in the same space. Laughter has taught me that I can move forward. Laughter has also taught me that there's just a connection that can be made between people. Like the amount of connections I made with strangers in public just because we laughed at the same thing. We might not even have been talking to each other or anything, like you just see something and then you just laugh at the person, you laugh at the person next to you and you just have that moment. Like there's just something about laughter. It's healthy, it's freeing, it's connecting. Like it has so much power. It's no surprise that, psychologists and people, doctors study it to see how well it works. But the thing I love about it is that you don't need a medical degree to use it. Like it's not like a drug. You can just use it willy-nilly. If you can make someone laugh, you can make them healthier, happier. You can change someone's life with a laugh.
Yeah. And legit, it has chemical effects that are good for you physically. Physiologically, it helps you in many ways. And so it's, that's why Patch Adams, that movie was about that doctor who used humor in his patient care because he knew, one, he was seeing the effect, but when you do the research that there is an effect to laughter. I know for me, one of the major things laughter has done is connected me to people and breaks ice, breaks tension, and makes a lot of situations much more palpable and easy to deal with. So I think that it's really been a wonderful tool. I work in mental health and I tell people all the time, like I tell when I've been, we've had placement students or when I teach at the college, I'm like, not everybody can use it in the same way, but if you can use humor in a way that's not going to create a bigger gap between you and your client, use it, because sometimes that's how I first get a client to even want to come back and talk to me, is because they're like, well, she kind of made me laugh and I don't know if she's going to fix my depression, but at least I know I might laugh when I go and see that chick. Right. So it's one of the things that's helped me in the therapy that I offer at work, so I found it really helpful. So how has laughter been medicine for you?
Well, I would say that because I'm aware that laughter is medicine, I think in my whole life, I've always tried to seek it out so that I could use it, kind of like how somebody might want to marry a plastic surgeon because they know they can get like a free touch up, they can get their eyes done and whatever, literally married into it. So I always seek out friends. And, when I was out there in the dating world, I think guys sometimes they don't even recognize the power that laughter really has over an interaction. Like you might look at a guy like, oh no, he's not all that. Like when we're younger and we're more I don't know what the word is. Like we're a little bit more we're less deep. We're more on the surface of things. You look at a guy, you're like, he's not all that. Like I wouldn't necessarily give him the time of day. He's not. That guy can make you laugh. All of a sudden you have like two good laughs and then you look at him again, he starts to look kind of good. He looks kind of good. And I think when I was dating, my standards are not the same as what I hear a lot of women saying now, where it's like, I want a guy with a great car, I want money, I want a guy who has his own place. But when you're younger, you can be a little bit less, anytime in your life, you can be a little less discriminating about things. I wanted a guy that could dance. I mean, that for me is a big thing. I need a guy that can dance, and I wanted a guy who would make me make me laugh. So my husband can make me laugh out of pretty much any situation. He can make me laugh even when I'm pissed off at him. I will be, like he'll say something and then I will just start laughing. And then I'm extra mad because he has just made me laugh when I'm really trying to be mad. But in the end, it's good for me. It's good for the relationship. It's good for me mentally, physiologically. So that is how laughter has been medicine for me, is surrounding myself with people that can make me laugh, as opposed to just, me being a comedian and trying to make everybody else laugh. But I need the laughter flowing through me as well on a very regular basis.
Cool. I when I think about the relationships that I have, friends, family, most of my memories involve moments of laughter. And there's actually a picture I have with Sandra. And I don't know why I said Sandra, with Sandra. And we're at some event. It's from eons ago, but the two of us are bent over and somebody caught us like in this like moment of laughter where your head is bobbing. And
Yeah.
I look at the picture and I laugh looking at the picture, but I can't remember what we were laughing at. And I'm like, but it looks like it was one of the sweetest jokes ever. And I know that those are so important for relationships. Oh my gosh. So your sister is saying,
I love
jokes,
laughing pictures.
but dance, God, must be true love. Must be love for truth. Your sister challenging. Oh my goodness.
I was just about to mention that too. Because my sister's on the phone, so she can also relate to it. I was just saying that I love laughing pictures, which you were just talking about, a picture of yourself laughing with friends. And my favorite picture of our parents, me and my sister, is a picture where my dad, I think, is tickling my mom. So they're standing face to face, but my mom is literally bent backwards at almost a degree angle because she's laughing so hard. Like the reckless abandon that is shown in that picture is something that I like. It's so hard to capture. Like I was so small. I wanted to know who took this picture, what was happening. And my parents were not together, by the time I was old enough to really know, like be conscious of the relationship. They were divorced. But this picture and the fact that they still spoke to each other and my mom would be laughing on the phone with my dad, even though they were no longer together, really showed me a lot about what I would be looking for in a relationship and what I'd be looking for in friendships and community. Like we need to have people around us that we can laugh with, and have that abandon where we don't worry about what we look like, because you never look worse than when you're like laughing and your nose is running and your mouth is open and you're drooling, but at the same time you never look more wonderful, when you see yourself like that. Like all of my best pictures it's never the ones where I'm posed and I'm like trying to look good, but if you can catch me when I'm laughing, it usually ends up looking much better.
Our eyes light up, like we glow in a way. Like there's so many wonderful things that happen when we're laughing, and so when that's captured, I love that. When I think about, for me, how like one of my first, like people ask me about, why do I love to laugh and things like that, and I'm like, one of my favorite memories is my mom deciding that you don't go to bed angry. Now, I think she's kind of given up that rule, but early on, that was her rule. And so when I was very young, I still remember this. So I would have been 5 or under because of the house we were living in. And my parents had been at each other. And my mom was like, but she was determined. She doesn't go to bed angry. So my dad she goes and has a shower. And my dad comes for her for round God knows whatever. And she flashes him. And my dad that was it. He burst into laughter. Of course, I'm sure he was also happy to see a naked woman. But he would just laugh. He started to laugh, and they kind of just went off to bed. And like, and that was it. Like the joke was done. Like the argument was done. He realized instantly there is no point in continuing this. Yes. And it really taught me something about how humor can be used. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to go around flashing people to bring humor and levity to a situation, because
I'm sure many people will be very disappointed to hear you say that, though. I mean,
yeah, well, that's not how I'm going to be bringing humor to a situation. I'll find other ways, but I definitely learned something about using humor and its benefits. So in your journey as a comedian, what have you learned about yourself and how has this helped you with your ability to be resilient?
Okay, well, I think comedy is something that I got into because people kept saying to me, I think a lot of people say that. They say, "Oh, you're so funny. You should do stand-up comedy. Oh, you're so funny. You should get into comedy." And again, this was nothing at all that I ever considered doing until I was, into my 40s, right? 40s, it's like, okay, the kids are older. I got more time on my hands. Maybe I can explore this thing and try to start a new hobby. Like, I wasn't that person that was like burning with the desire to get on stage. It was just kind of like, all right, I can try this and see what will happen, but I guess what I learned from comedy is that you can keep going, and you can keep trying, and you might have, like, let's say if you did 5 shows and you bombed 2 and you didn't make people laugh, but the other 3 are like comedy gold, and you sometimes that comedy gold means that there's just one person in the audience that's laughing and everybody else is looking at you like, I don't even get it, but you're bringing so much joy to that one person. It just made me want to keep on doing it. Like, hey, I have something here, and yes, I've been making my friends and family laugh for years, at various, domino tables and hangouts and at Kwanzaa and everything like that. But this is an opportunity for me to go out there and bring joy to other people who I don't know, and I have to be resilient because, it's not always going to go well, but I really have to keep going because for all the times it doesn't go well, when it does go well, it's going to be so worth it to me and also to that other person, and so I try to use that same approach that I use in comedy to my life. Like, okay, well, that didn't go well. Like, I decided I wanted to try something, or I wanted to talk to somebody, or I thought, yeah, let me go something like, buy these new shoes. Well, that didn't go well. It didn't look good. My feet hurt. I have a blister, but I'm going to be resilient and I'm going to not let that stop me from the things that I want to do. Sometimes we get our feelings hurt. Sometimes we go out there and we connect with people, or we go to work and we have a bad day. And again, we're right back there like, that didn't go well. What have I learned from that? But if I keep trying, then maybe the next time will be so worth it for me, and maybe for somebody else who saw me fall flat on my face and might say, well, you know what, if she could get up after she did so terribly, I like, oh my God, if she would show her face in public again after she just blew it so badly, I guess there might be hope for me too.
Yeah. And I think what's really great about what you said, it's something that, I hadn't always had the right way to articulate it, but somebody articulated it really well for me. And it's really a great aspect of resilience is when you're trying something, don't be married to the outcome. So if you were so fixated on, I'm getting up there and I've got to make people laugh, and if I don't make people laugh, you would quit. If you were so fixated on, this is what has to happen. And in life, I think we often deal with that where we're like, if it doesn't go the way I want, sometimes we're so ready to throw in the towel, but we've got to keep going. We've got to keep trying, right? And I can truly say this because I go through those cycles where I'm like, I can't take this. I'm not doing this. Forget this. And then, like, I actually did a video the other day that I still have to edit and post, looking at what's your why? Because that's one of the things that keeps me going is, what is even the reason I'm doing some of these things that I start to get burnt out in? But when I've learned, don't be married to the outcome, it's been very helpful to me in that ability to keep going, because we don't even recognize sometimes how much we gain in just the process of something, right? And I think in comedy, I've been learning that about how to look at how I construct a joke, or when it's taught me new ways to look for humor in situations. And there's many things that it's added to my life that are separate from being on the stage and telling a joke that is quote unquote successful because people laughed. So there's all kinds of things that I found very beneficial from the whole process. So, my big focus usually when I talk is about resilience. And when I do my public speaking, that's my center of focus. And so one of the things that I think are really two big aspects of being resilient are tenacity, which we've kind of addressed already, and the perspective, like how we're looking at things. And so how have perspective and tenacity been part of how you live your life, and how do you bring humor into that?
Well, I mean, perspective is really important to humor. It really is, because um, sometimes whether something is funny or heartbreaking is really just your perspective, right? And I think that's what I really took away from my first time doing comedy, was that the audience had a completely different perspective from me. And I would say that my first time doing stand-up comedy was by all accounts a success, but I didn't understand what was happening, because I basically had a friend who said, "Hey, come and do my show," and it was a hard day for me because it was my mother's birthday, the first birthday after she had passed away. So I was like, I don't know. But at the same time, I got to go out there and do something. I can't just stay home and cry, right? Like I gotta do something. So I remember I got out there.
Where do you find funny? Because I'm sure it did not feel like a very funny day.
Yeah, and it was not a funny day. So I was not at all prepared, right? Like I didn't have anything written down, and writing down everything is like, that's my thing. Like I got a plan, I got to get my transitions, I got to this, that, and the other. But that day I had nothing. So I was like, I'm just going to get out there and go talk to these people about what's been going on. So I started telling the audience about what it was like to plan my mother's funeral. And it was, the audience was on the floor, like, and I'm looking at them like, you people are crazy. Like, I don't even understand like how this can be funny. Like, I'm here trying to get something off my chest. I'm talking to them about how stupid it is that the caskets have names and the prices are so ridiculous. And the whole thing about, preparing the body, and the coroner who made us wait so that he can tell us that she's dead. And we're like, look, dude, like, how much do they pay you for this job? Like, obviously we know that she's dead. Like, the coroner's job, it should be a minimum wage job. Like, don't make me sit here with this body for 3 hours just so that you can show up and be like, she's dead. I was like, who is paying you for this? So all of these things I was trying to get off my chest, telling this audience, and the audience is like rolling on the floor with laughter. And I'm like, you people are a bunch of psychopaths. Like, it makes no sense how I'm laughing as I'm trying to share my pain. Like, it's my mother's birthday. My mother died. What is the matter with you? But, in hindsight, it really was just a matter of perspective. Like, they could see the humor in it, although I could not see the humor in it yet, even though I was the comedian. So I'm the comedian and I didn't have the humorous perspective, but they had it, and it makes you see that, yeah, a lot of things can be funny about any situation, even the most painful situations. There's no shame in laughing, and that's really the perspective. Even now when I know this, a lot of us are talking about this past week, the protest and the Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter protests all around the world. And there's always going to be people that say, how can you laugh at a time like this? How can you laugh? How dare you post this funny meme about anything? But one thing I'll say about us as Black people specifically, and about people generally, is that as long as it's not completely disrespectful, we will find a way to laugh. We need that perspective. We can find humor. We can find humor in any situation, but it's to our benefit. Like, we're not trying to undercut something. Like, look at how the coroner that for the police department that examined the body said that the man died of pre-existing conditions. An independent coroner found that he died from having somebody's knee on his neck. Everybody in the world is like, well, duh.
Anybody who saw the video or heard like 2 seconds of what happened knew that.
But so even that in and of itself is kind of funny. It's funny because it's so obvious. Like, when I saw that, I actually had to laugh. I had to laugh. Like, we can laugh for all kinds of reasons, but it's perspective. It's how we look at it that makes us determine whether it's funny or not. And I think that using humor to bring us together, to relax us, but to, to keep us focused and moving at a time like this is the ultimate expression of tenacity. It's a role that comedians have always played.
Yeah.
That's why we're able to repost and reshare things like, what did Chris Rock say about a few bad apples in the police department? How many years ago was that? What did Pryor say about police brutality? How many comedians have always talked about this? They haven't changed, it, but they've played a role in bringing it to the attention and keeping it in the conversation, even at times of where we're trying to be like chill. We may be laughing, but we're still going to talk about these issues.
Yeah. Your sister's saying we also need that release, and I totally agree. I think that's why I've been grateful when I've seen humor used in a funeral, and I try to bring it into therapy sessions sometimes to break some of that tension, or, even in situations like this, or, with the coronavirus, like how many memes have I gotten? Now I feel like I'm rating them, right? So I'm like, okay, that's one of the best memes I've seen. That's one of the best videos. This one's going to go in the don't bother pile. But like, it's one of the ways we cope. It's one of the ways that we manage. And it's a beautiful way to manage, because you don't want it to be all heavy, all that stress all the time. And I know, like, when my sister died, and I felt at one point that people were avoiding me because I think they were thinking all she's going to want to do is talk about it. I'm like, all I want is a break from thinking about it. So my colleague called me up and she's like, let's go see this movie. And it was complete fluff. And it was just what I needed, because I got to laugh at really silly things. I got to not think about it for a minute. It's not like I was trying to avoid, it was still going to be there, but I needed a break. I needed a moment to just have that release of laughter. And it was really quite effective in that moment. So we definitely,
something I've noticed, something I've always noticed is I'll say that the worst time to get for somebody to start laughing is at a funeral. But yet, I have so many funeral things where I will just say, like, do not make me start laughing right now, because if I start laughing, I will never stop. And it's going to be a big thing, because you have all of that bottled up inside. I remember one funeral that my sister and I went to where, we were all overcome with grief, like it was a young cousin of ours, and we were overwhelmed with grief because he was so young and we were so sad. But at the same time, I was so uncomfortable because it was just one of those days where I wore the wrong underwear. Sometimes.
Okay, I can certainly say I didn't know you were going to go there. Do go on.
I was very uncomfortable. You keep like adjusting and readjusting and readjusting, and I'm like weeping and readjusting, and I'm crying, and yet these underwear are just really not working. And so I turned to my sister just out of total frustration, and we're both crying, and I said to her, this is the last time that I buy underwear from the $5 bin. And then there was just this beat of silence between us, and then the two of us just exploded with laughter. But it was so inappropriate that we had to, like, we were still crying because now we were laughing, but the release just bubbled out of us. So to make matters worse, all of these aunties and church ladies came running over to us. They were fanning us with their fans. We're collapsing on the ground. They're like, oh,
they think you're just overcome with grief.
Yeah, they're calling the Holy Spirit. We're totally laughing. We are going.
Your sister is saying, I will not go to another funeral with you, Nicole. Never. Unless it's my own, of course. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I can only imagine. And I'm sure by that point, then you have that moment, you finally pull it together, and then you're trying to, you can't make eye contact with your sister because it's going to it's going to go right back, right?
No, there are already people you already know that you have in your life that you're like, I can't go anywhere with this person because if something happens, it's going to be bad for all of us. Like, there are friends
who sit with me at church because they're like, Natasha, if something happens on stage and I look at you, it's over. So I have people who refuse to sit with me in church. So
I have an entire generation of people who I don't even know. But if I go anywhere and somebody plays The Greatest Love of All, I can't look at anybody. Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All, because I am going to turn to whoever is next to me of a certain Generation X, and I'm going to say, sexual chocolate, and that person is going to, and we are going to do it together. I have no self-control. You cannot play that song around me. I have no behavior. It's
Your
gonna.
sister's saying, don't forget the iconic face plant at the funeral home. Remother Amy.
That's our grandmother. Yeah. Again, very
Who
fun.
face planted? She did?
Oh yeah. My sister face planted. Walked into the viewing, looked around the room. She was overcome with emotion and she just fell on her face. And I started laughing. I didn't even pick girl up. I was just like, again, those emotions, it's like the emotions of grief are so bottled up. Laughter is like, it's like a pressure relief valve. Like it just,
it really is.
But it's
I think anything where you start releasing emotion, all the other emotions that are there come flooding if you've been trying to hold them in, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway of it. Like if we even talk about my grandmother's funeral or my cousin's funeral or any other funerals, more times we remember the things that made us laugh, like why are all the uncles always passing around a bottle of liquor out in the parking lot? Like these are the things you remember. You don't focus on the grief as much. You focus on the laughter and the joy that you were able to find even in the middle of all this grief.
Yeah, it's amazing how it can change a situation, especially because when you look back at it, then it's not just the sad memories. It's not just that heaviness, right? So it's really something that I think helps just kind of the whole situation. Your sister says, I'm a greedy hog. What? Does this make sense to you?
What?
Your sister saying I'm a greedy hog?
Yeah, I think she's determined to like expose every single funeral service, but it's like we've been sisters for almost 50 years. No, we've been sisters for almost 50 years. Like we cannot actually rehash every single funeral joke that we had. Life is long and this is too long. So let's keep it moving.
Oh my gosh. So just one more question. How do we add humor to our lives, like daily, like if we can?
I think we should follow that old saying of a funny thing happened to me on the way to such and such, right? Like I think humor is something that we have to practice. We have to practice making it a part of our everyday lives. And you can always see when it's not a part of somebody's life. Like I live in horror of that day where I start to notice that the corners of my mouth are always turning down. And because we don't practice smiling or finding humor. Like I've had some of the worst days, like we all have some of the worst days, whether it's something at work or something that happened with your kids or something, right? But we've got to make that thing like, you will not believe what happened to me today, and then just tell it. Practice talking to people, practice telling it, because the back and forth is kind of like a tennis match with a friend or with a partner that if you don't see the humor in it, they will find the humor in it, together. So it's not just to say, yeah, that's too bad that's happened to you, but it's good to practice having those conversations with people that will, in a way, uplift you. I have a lot of friends that call me for this reason. And for years, I didn't know that that's what they were doing. That was why I didn't know that's why they were calling me. I think that we all have friends that serve different purposes. So for friends, there are friends that we call and they're going to cry with us and that's all they're going to do. And then there are friends that are going to laugh with us. There are friends, I'm kind of with you, but I'm also that friend that's like, I don't have time to listen to you go on and on about what's wrong in your life. Just call me when you're ready to do something. Like if your man broke your heart, you call a different friend and you cry with them. But when you're ready to slash his tires and smash his windshield, then you call me, right? I'm that.
Well, you have a plan.
Yeah, you got to be ready for action.
Call me when they just need to vent about it. I'm the listening to the crier person. I'm not the tire slasher.
It's sometimes difficult to vent to. Like look at last week when I was talking to you about whether or not it would be wrong to kill my husband and bury him in the backyard because he was getting on my nerves, and then you were like, "Oh, that would be against the law." and that you would actually have to report me if I was to say that, because you can't be involved in the commissioning of a crime. Like, all right, who needs all that noise? Like, come on.
Hey,
so I got to call.
Are you listen, have you committed the crime? What I did
I'm
was
not going to tell you now. No, now that I know that you would have to turn me in, I can guarantee you that if I buried this man in the backyard, you'd be the last.
I know, but right now you haven't done it. So in that moment, I saved you from.
How do you know? How do you know I haven't done it?
I saw him online the other day at your niece's graduation ceremony. So as of Saturday, he was still alive.
Girl, it's Tuesday. How long do you think it takes to kill? I know
where you live. I'll come check your backyard. Check with your neighbors if they smell something. It's warm. It'll get funky fast.
See, that's why I don't tell you anything. That's against the law. I don't tell you anything that's against the law. Just forget it.
But see, again, here we are laughing, right? It might be
weird, so after
morbid, slightly
dark. After we finished having that conversation, I felt less likely to want to do him bodily harm. That's why friends save husbands' lives.
Okay, your sister's not right. She says I'm suspicious. Haven't seen him dancing in a few days.
I'm not admitting to anything. I'm just not.
Oh my gosh.
Listeners, don't listen to her. I'm a lovely person, I promise. Yeah. Lovely.
You're the one who brought up wanting to do your husband bodily harm. So
no, I brought up you not supporting me in the doing of bodily harm.
You still brought it up. So when you're trying to convince people how great you are, remember, you're the one who brought that to the conversation, not me.
Fine.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been a great conversation. I'm so happy to talk about how we can bring humor into our lives and intentionally use it as a tool. I think sometimes it's unintentional, but I think it's a good reminder to be intentional about having moments, spaces, times where we laugh, where we smile. Like I right now feel like I have a little bit of an addiction to Dry Comedy Bar on YouTube because I keep watching all.
I love them.
I know, right? I keep watching their specials, but I'm like, and then, one of my other things, and it's intentional. If I've had a really rough day and I want to laugh, sometimes I watch outtakes of Family Feud on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only do people say stuff that's funny, I love Steve Harvey's response because he's like, that was dumb. That's not going to be there. He's going to take so long to recover from laughing himself. It's nice to laugh. It's totally medicine for me. And I think that we can do exactly that, like bring it to people and have people bring it to us. And when you were talking, it made me think about sometimes when I bring a humorous story, then other people bring their humorous stories. So last week, I was one of several speakers in a mental health event online. And, I do public speaking and I'm on a stage and I've got nice distance. So, if there's a little bit of extra stuff on my face, it doesn't really show. Well, there I am. I'm going to be on camera. I'm this close and I get stung right here by this Boeing 747 of a mosquito. Never seen such a big mosquito in my life. So I instantly Google how to reduce swelling on a mosquito bite. And I get this cold compress and I'm holding it to my head. Now, mind you, I did let it swell a little bit because I took a picture and sent it to two of my speaker friends. And then I held the cold compress. So by the time I got online and my makeup was done and everything, it was fine. But I then posted to my speaking group on Facebook, the speaking association that I'm in, what happened. And so, of course, one or two people put in their stories about things that have happened to them right before they have to do their speaking. And I love it because we all have had that moment of like where you feel like Murphy's Law at its best is working in your life. And this thing's going to go so wrong. It's going to go so left when you need to be right or vice versa. And at the end of the day, what can you do but laugh? Right?
Yeah, sometimes it's even better than like the thing that wasn't meant to happen might be even better than what you actually had planned.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having this chat with me. It's been wonderful. And thank you, Keisha, for jumping in and on Facebook and offering your 2 cents worth. I don't know if enoje is as glad about it, but I'm certainly glad to be part of the discussion. And I hope that people can just be reflective and look at how they can bring humor into their lives and see how like you were able to use it as part of your healing when your mom died. And even if that wasn't the initial intention, that was some of the byproduct of just how you were managing what happened. Your sister says,
But
I
that's
fell
when,
down the stairs, broke my face and wrist right before I was going to MC a gig. Oh, good Lord. She must have been a sight to see.
oh, she was, and she fell down the stairs to the song "Double Dutch Bus." I was not there. I heard this, and you see, you're laughing. So, what
Because
the
I'm like, I can only,
song?
like, I'm picturing her kind of dancing and right? Like, it's
Yeah, I don't
got
know
a
if
whole
she falls
visual.
out
It's kind of in my head
on the
now.
beat.
Sorry?
But I was saying that that's one of the things that really that was really a catalyst for But Is She Funny?
Mm-hmm.
Because I find that when it comes to humor and how it's presented, most of our heroes of comedy are men, because they've had access to a stage earlier, in the world than we do, like at a time when women really weren't allowed to access stages in this way. They kind of had a head start. But even with that, a lot of times women, we don't feel that confidence, even though we make each other laugh all the time, but that sense of, I can go on stage and do this for the world, is not there. Opportunities for us are a bit of a struggle, because a lot of times, we're responsible for the homes and the kids. Like I used to say, when I started in comedy, like, man, I need a wife, so I don't have to worry about who's looking after my kids. Like, luckily I have a husband, but I'm like, even with a husband, I need a wife, because my husband will stay home with the kids. But if I had a wife, then I would come home and the kids would be bathed, dressed, put to bed, the dishes would be washed, everything would be done. I sound like a complete sexist here, right? So of course, this is just humor, but there's all kinds of reasons why, as women, we don't access comedy in the same way. And I'm really working to change that, to encourage women to be like, hey, take that same thing that's making your girlfriend scream with laughter when when you sit down and watch TV together and talk on the phone together, take that, harness it, and take it to the stage, because the world is changing. A lot of us, we don't have the same access to our girlfriends anymore. We're leaving communities, we're moving further and further away. But when I see a Black woman on stage, I feel validated, like when she's talking about, taking off her bra at the end of a long day, I feel validated. When she's talking about whatever guy she's dated and what's going on with that, online dating is nonsense. Like, we have different issues that we need to talk about as women from our perspective. I talk a lot about being a mother, what it's like raising my kids. It's validating. We need to hear and laugh at our own stories and lives. So I'm hoping that if there's a funny woman, or a woman who feels like she might want to take a chance that's within the sound of my voice, that she'll hit me up and say, how do I get started? So we can get you on a stage wherever you are, or get you on a computer screen wherever you are, because this is the pandemic that we're in right now. But a pandemic is a great time to write and to develop your craft so that you can be ready when stages are available again. But we need stories to be told, women's voices to be heard.
Yeah, and I mean, look at with me, like here I was like, oh, it's a bucket list thing. I'm only doing this once, and you really more voluntold me than invited me to do it. But I was like, oh, because it's on my bucket list, I'll do it this one time, and I'll never forget that moment where I like said I was done, and I turned to walk off the stage, and I was like, I've got to do that again. It was, I can't even describe how invigorating and the feeling that I got from doing it. It was wonderful. And so I'm happy to do it. And what it's taught me too is, as much as I've known I can be funny when I'm having regular conversations, it's taught me to embrace that I'm a funny person. And so now there's more intentionality in using it in different areas of my life.
Yeah, it's something that we have to learn how to do. I know some people, they go to school for it, and they study. Some people, they have more of a natural talent. It's kind of like running, right? Like, some people, they have a trainer and they work out at the gym, and then some people are like, yeah, I'm just going to run and see what happens, and then they turn out to be completely amazing. But as long as you finish the race, it really doesn't matter how fast you're going. Your only competition is against yourself. Comedy is the same. Like, we're not all going to be the next Wanda Sykes, like that's at a different level. I don't know if we're all trying to be complete superstars, but I feel like, yeah, I may not become a comedy millionaire, but if I can laugh and save a few lives along the way, it's something that we can all be doing for the betterment of everybody.
And it's just a beautiful thing to be able to bring people that those moments to laugh. It's a gift really. And so it's embracing that gift and utilizing your gift, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. This has been fantastic. We're gonna have to talk about it some more, talk about something else soon. I think we should do this again with whatever the topic is. Well, this, everybody, is enoje. And do you want to just say how people can find you on social media?
Sure. I'll say that I'm old school, so they can also find me on a website for all we old heads out there. My website is butishefunny.com or bishfunny.com. Both of those will take you to the same site. That's BISH Funny, stands for But Is She Funny. And I'm on Twitter at bishfunny and on Instagram at funnybishness. And I'm on Facebook at But Is She Funny. So you can find me. I have a new
awesome. And you're being interviewed tomorrow too on a different podcast on What's Good with Kinte. And so hopefully whoever's able can tune in. Just look for it on Facebook and they should be able to find the info.
Yeah, it'll be on our But Is She Funny page. Thanks again for having me.
Oh, such a pleasure. Totally a pleasure.